My mom is a New York City urban shaman, for real, like a real shaman, a healer. And she would always tell me the age-old adage of Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss. My dad was an award-winning writer and director of commercials, better known for his Federal Express campaigns back in the 80s, but also for the Wendy's, "Where's the beef?" Unfortunately, both my parents passed in my 20s, and I was left to figure out things on my own with these two clues. Follow your bliss, and where's the beef? Lorna Roberts was my mom, one of the first people to lead Westerners down to South America to study the traditions of the Native Americans there. She brought people to Machu Picchu, to the Inca Trail, to Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, to the Nazca Plains. We also had a big brownstone in New York City that was ground zero for her practice. She had many students who would come and partake in ceremonies and rituals and one-on-one training with my mom. It was also a place as a teenager that I wanted to have parties at, and she was obviously a little bit of a liberal mom. So she struck a deal with me, and she said, okay, you can have a party if you sit in this couch with me and you watch an hour of Joseph Campbell being interviewed by Bill Moyers on The Power of Myth. Seemed like a pretty fair trade, right? So I'd sit there for an hour and I'd learn all about, Power of Myth and Masks of God and the collective unconscious and the hero's journey, most importantly, and this idea of following your bliss. And then I'd go do a keg stand with my friends. When I was 18, graduated from high school, my mom gifted me one of these journeys to go down to South America and to hike the Inca Trail into Machu Picchu, known as the Path of the Initiate. It was not with her, it was with one of her first teachers, Alberto Vialdo. And being the young buck 18-year-old, I, of course, was out in front of everybody, out the front of the top of the mountain. I'm going to find my initiation first, I guess, I'm first. And then, of course, I was struck with a terrible case of altitude sickness and was just buckled over the trail. And as all the middle-aged people passed me saying, like, how's your bliss coming? So didn't find my vision there or my bliss. My dad, on the other hand, was this award-winning director, writer of commercials. A larger-than-life figure. You can see here he had his own personal style, better hair than I do. Bandanas he would wear, big red beard, 250, 6'4", oftentimes stopped on the street for an autograph thinking he was Big John Studd, the wrestler. He's best known for this one commercial, though, the Fast Talking Man, that really revolutionized some of the advertising of its day. Still considered to be one of the best commercials in the last 40 years, and I'm going to play it for you because it's pretty damn funny.
Okay, Eunice, travel plans. I need to be in New York on Monday, LA on Tuesday, New York on Wednesday, LA on Thursday, New York on Friday. Got it? Got it. So you want to work here. What really makes you think you deserve a job here?
Well, sir, I think on my feet I'm good at figures and I have a sharp mind.
Excellent. Can you start on Monday?
Yes, sir, absolutely, without hesitation.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And in conclusion, Jim, Bill, Bob, call Fred, Load, Dork, Adolf, and Ted. Business is business. And as we all know, in order to get something done, you got to do something. In order to do something, we got to get to work. So let's get to work. Thank you for tuning in. Petey, you did a bang-up job. I'm putting you in charge of Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, perfect.
I know it's perfect, Peter. That's why I picked Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's perfect. Peter, may I call you Pete?
Call me Pete.
Pete.
There's a Mr. Schnittler here to see you.
Tell him to wait 15 seconds.
Can you wait 15 seconds?
I'll wait 15 seconds.
Congratulations on your deal in Denver, Dave. I'm putting you down to deal with Dallas. Don, is it a deal? Do we have a deal? It's a deal. I got to go. I got a call coming in. Hi, Doc. Just dealt with Don.
In this fast-moving, high-pressure, get-it-done-yesterday world, aren't you glad there's one company that can keep up with it all?
You got a deal. Good. I'm putting you down to deal with Dick. Dick, what's the deal with the deal? Are we dealing? We're dealing. Dave, it's a deal with Don, Doc, Dick. Doc, it's a deal with Dave, Dick, and Dave. Don, it's a doc with Dick, Dave, and Doug. Gotta go, Dave. Disconnecting. Gotta go, Dick. Disconnecting. Gotta go, Dan. Disconnecting.
Federal Express. But it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight.
That was my dad. Pretty amazing guy. He won a lot of awards, tons of Clio awards. He primarily used them as toilet paper dispensers at his office. And despite all of his success in advertising, his main passion was music. He was a jazz drummer growing up, played in all the big bands, kept playing music. We always had a drum set up in the house, and he encouraged me to play piano. He'd bring me down to the West Village to go to the Village Gate and the Village Vanguard to check out the likes of Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Wynton Marsalis, Lionel Hampton. I was exposed to so many talented, amazing musicians. And because of him, I think, I also went into the Oberlin Conservatory for college to study music, sit in these practice rooms day after day, and try to improve my skills. And it was a difficult path, much like that locomotive that Kip talked about. I kept bumping up against the wall, and I found myself kind of like on the Inca Trail journey, buckled over, being like, is this really my Bliss? Where's the beef? But there was another solution. So the question was, do I follow my dad or do I follow my mom? Or do I follow both? Or is there another way? And my mom had another suggestion for me at the graduation of college, which was to take part in what's known as a vision quest. It's a Native American tradition where you get sent out into the wilderness by yourself, oftentimes just a knife, and you fend for yourself with no food for 3 nights and 4 days. So we did this outside the desert of Anza Borrega Desert and outside of San Diego. And I didn't have a tent at the time, so I was borrowing my mom's little tent. And on my vision quest, it rained for 3 days straight. And I was stuck inside this tent, barely able to sit up, just a journal, nothing to read, just visioning of steak and potatoes and chicken McNuggets, and guess what I was saying? Where's the beef? But on the 4th day, the sun did come out, and the rain cleared, and I was able to go outside and sit and meditate and look into the wilderness. And I was struck with this force, this feeling, this image of 2 hands being cupped like this in the hillside, and a voice whispering to me, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be taken care of. And for me, it was my first real experience of faith, and it's something that I've carried with me my whole life. 2 years later, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I moved from San Francisco back to New York to help take care of her during her healing crisis. Not being one for Western modalities, as you imagine, we traveled the earth trying to find a cure. We went down to Brazil, to faith healers there to do psychic surgery. We went to hyperbaric chambers in Long Island to increase her oxygen count. We went to some doctor in Germany who did these high vitamin injectables. We went down to the Optimum Health Institute in Austin, Texas, where we did nothing but wheatgrass and raw food for 2 months. And on one of her last journeys that she led for a group, I accompanied her down to the Inca Trail again. And on this Inca Trail journey, about halfway through the week, I was just overwhelmed with this burning desire to leave on my own. And much to her disappointment, I left her journey and started my hero's journey. And the moment I set foot in Ecuador, magic started to happen. People showed up. A British couple invited me to go on this boat cruise with them to the Galapagos, where I got to see these huge turtles and the albatross try to land over and over again, and these big pelicans and parrots. I was invited out to the countryside and taking part in dinners with native people and new food and sleeping on hammocks and beaches. I called my sister, who had had a rift with over the last couple of years, and in one phone call over a crackly phone line, I healed that relationship with compassion and love. And most importantly, I got an email from this guy, Ian Fraser, sitting over here in San Francisco, who'd had a dream. And he wrote in his email, he said, I had a dream. It's called the Go Game. You got to come to San Francisco, man. So I did. The Go Game ended up being the first location-based game of its time. Played on cell phones that were old and LCD screens. We asked people to traverse the city to solve location-based clues, to interact with actors and to have real-world interactions, to take creative photos and video challenges of themselves doing real crazy creative antics. But at the time, we had no idea what we were doing. We just dressed up in silly costumes and made puppets and explored all different kinds of ideas. We built these boxes to hide in parks. We inflated rafts to get into Stowe Lake and wrote clues on the sides of bridges with chalk and poetry you had to decipher. We asked people to get on tandem bikes. We were exploring kind of what the creative aspects of this game were going to be. And much like in Ecuador, magic started to happen. People started to show up. We started doing community games once a month that we'd advertise on Craigslist, and lo and behold, people wanted to come out and play. One of the first people who came out and play was Jane McGonigal, who's also done a TED Talk here. This is here featured with her husband now, Kiyosh. And she was doing her PhD in Berkeley, and came to us and said she wanted to be an intern with the Go Game. And so we brought her on for a summer, and she helped script some of the first games. Another important character, an early game player and actor in the game, was ANJALI JAMESON. Ended up being our first employee and helped us figure out how to really sell this game to companies to give us some much-needed revenue we needed to support our company. We had press that came out and found us, from the SF Weekly to the Cron to Reuters to CNN, giving us the exposure we needed to kind of lift this business up. We were voted in 2001 as the best way to rediscover your city by SF Weekly. And we were in this unknown place. It was the end of the dot-com bubble, so of course you couldn't just go and show up with a business idea. You actually had to build something. And it was also what my friend Jada Boomrad of Radiolab calls in his new manifesto he's posted here about Radiolab, about its early days and how it came into being, was what he calls the gut churn phase, where you have no idea what's going to happen, that existential dread place of the unknown, where creativity tends to be the most fertile. So we showed up every day at this little tiny cubicle of a room of mine in a mission and just scripted missions, came up with ideas, new technology, any way we could to try to further this game along. So my point about the bliss part here, I think it needs a bit of an amendment. I think to follow one's bliss, you must be led. There's a quote from a guy named Dr. Wayne Dyer, who has a movie called The Shift from Ambition to Meaning. And in this movie, he posits the question, what did you do for the first 9 months of your life that brought you into being? Those first crucial 9 months where you were in utero gestating, what did you do to give you 10 perfect fingers and 10 perfect toes? And I think the answer is nothing, right? You didn't do anything. It just happened. A force was pulling you forward. And I agree with him that force continues to pull you forward throughout the rest of your life. And your job is to develop intuition and to tap into the clues that are being presented in the form of synchronicities. And synchronicities are those moments of chance that seemingly are coincidental, but carry with them more information than chance can possibly afford. And one of these moments just happened to me recently as I was in Amsterdam, and I was talking to some guy. I was going there by myself, and I was talking to a guy at a bar telling him about my TED Talk, and he was like, hey, man, you got to read this thing called The Journey Home. And I think wrote down in my book. I was like, okay, Journey Home. The next night, I go out again. I'm talking to some guy, and he's like, got a tattoo thing sticking out. I'm like, hey, what's your tattoo about? And he takes it down, and he has an anchor, and on the bottom of it says, The Journey Home. And I'm like, I got to get that book. Okay, right? That's synchronicity. These are the little clues that are being provided by this force that's going to lead you down the path. There's some quotes from literature that refer to this. This is Milan Kundera, the author of The Unbearable Lightness of Being, who writes, chance and chance alone has a message for us. Everything that occurs out of necessity that is repeated is mute. Only chance can speak to us. We can read its message much like gypsies read the messages in the coffee grounds. And this from Carlos Castaneda, one of my mom's favorites, teaching of Don Juan, about the warrior state. All of us, whether or not we are warriors, have a cubic centimeter of chance that pops out in front of our eyes from time to time. The difference between the average person and a warrior is that the warrior is aware of this state and stays alert, deliberately waiting, so that when the centimeter of chance pops out, it is picked up upon. So the Go game, I believe, in some small way, asks of its nearly 1 million players who've played this game over the last 12 years. It asks them to step outside their routine, to follow clues that are being delivered over the airwaves coming down onto a cell phone. It asks them to tap into their creativity and to challenge them to do new things. And I'm going to show you some photos here of some of the highlights from our games. Here's a team here doing leapfrog in the middle of Moscone and Howard Street. This here is an enrolling of a stranger. She's managed to handcuff the cop with his own cuffs. Probably only in San Francisco could we do that one. Sometimes they're profound, as in this here, romancing the scone. And sometimes they're ridiculous, like this here reenactment of Death in Plato done by some middle-aged businessmen on vacation in Cabo. And sometimes they're the combination of the profound and the ridiculous. And this is the thinker. And then one of my favorites, we did a game for charity for this thing. I won a goat. We gave a goat for $20 to some organization in India, and we did a Bollywood-themed game. This here is the culmination of it in a flash mob Bollywood dance in the middle of the park. So creativity, a topic that I really am profoundly impressed by, is something that I think that was spoken best by Elizabeth Gilbert here on another TED Talk, who talks about creativity being in the ether, being circling the world in this another outside force. She talks about the Greeks who had this notion of a genius and how they refer to them. They say that the person has a genius and not is a genius, as if there's some outside collaborator that's helping them along in their geniusness. And I believe that's true, that if you're sitting there diligently at the piano every morning at 5 in the morning, that energy will come down and drop you down a pearl. And if you're not there, if you're hungover that day, well, then Tom Waits gets it and you don't. And for me, music has actually come back into my life. I've been blessed enough to know one of these geniuses. His name is Adam Theus. He's the director of the Jazz Mafia here in San Francisco. And we've combined forces to create a new performance event once a month at the Go Game headquarters that combines big band music with aerial dance, with juggling, with tap dancers, with gameplay, interactivity with the audience. And I'm going to show you guys a clip of what we put together here. So the hero's journey starts off with the little guy there, on the Inca Trail, trying to find what his calling is, and the idea that you're going to be led to your bliss. The key factors in that is developing a faith, following the clues, and being ready to rebel, even if it's against your mom on the Inca Trail. Entering into the unknown, the gut churn phase that Jad talks about, he also says that the biggest obstacle to creativity is certainty. The longer you can sit in that place of uncomfortability, the more stuff you're going to turn out. Ask for guides and allies and teachers. They will appear. And be present in sitting at that piano or the dance floor or the easel, because when those creative trade winds pop around, you want to be ready when that pearl comes. And so who was right, my mom or my dad? I think they were both right. Thank you.